because I now know where the button is, and it saves me having to remember to upload it afterwards.
The buttons.
Um, yeah, I'm convinced it wasn't that. I think they've added it since. So yeah, if you don't mind me asking about the contributor platform, like there's one that's kind of been bugging me for a little while. Let me shuffle some windows around for a second. Share. No, no. First time I've done this since upgrading to the latest macOS. So if it
Mm.
doesn't work, let me know. Is that working all right?
Yep.
Awesome, awesome. So what like what we so we're trying to get nice, I don't know if you want to call it like UX, user experience, UI, etc. So we've revamped, like tweaked the color scheme a little bit recently, added some um sexy icons to it. And then I just literally deployed a change because we had like lots of primary CTAs on this homepage.
Yeah.
So now we've kind of got this one primary and then sort of some secondaries. And then if you log in,
Yeah.
um, it then changes the primary, etc. Um, the nice thing is that we're able to like conditionally show or hide log in, connect with the community, and read the guide. So log in, we know when you're logged in. Connect with the community is about Discord. So we do that based on whether or not you've posted anything on the Discord server. So on the profile, you've got forum posts at the bottom, and you've got Discord messages. So we can see if you've posted on the forum and on Discord. So we can hide that based on that. Read the guide. We'd say if you're a contributor level 2 or above, I think is what we use to hide that. So I think that's reasonably fair. Um, but so join event will always be displayed. Um, and then this one's the one that I've been sort of throwing ideas around in my head for quite some time because it seems like it should be simple and black and white, but there's a few I don't know what you want to call it, a few sort of ifs and buts. So I'm just gonna open another VS Code where I can script some notes potentially in a second. So the challenges are right. So um, number one, we could make a real-time API query. Once you're logged in here, we could make a real-time API call to GitLab.com to see if if you're a member of the community forks, we'll refer to them as community forks for the moment, and or if you have or have had an onboarding issue. We've already got two different things because we've got a lot of people who went through the legacy process and they never had an onboarding issue,
Yeah.
but they've got access. And then there's the people who have got onboarding issues. So the CTA is to request access to the group, so it's not really going to work if you've already got access. So I kind of feel like probably if we're going to conditionally show and hide this, it should be based on you just having access and not whether you've had an onboarding issue.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we should change the CTA almost and be like, okay, you do have access, but you weren't onboarded. We've now got a new process, and so we could almost have two different cards or CTAs. So do you think, first of all, that seems logical that we use your access rather than the presence of an onboarding issue as the condition to determine whether or not to show or hide?
Well, I think that if you have an onboarding issue, you technically already start on the onboarding process. And other than,
So that's a good point. I was actually thinking about it the other way around. People that have got access but don't have issues. I hadn't thought about the fact that you've then got the other way around. People that have got issues but haven't been approved yet.
yep,
But then we could just check for either. we could just check membership if that makes sense. So if you're either a pending member or an approved member, because both of those actually come up in the group membership. So we
They
could, yeah, we could kill two birds with one stone if that makes sense. I don't know if I'll be able to make the API request or not.
Because if that's the case, then you could because you could either, if you have an issue for the access request or well, not the access request, but the onboarding issue, or you already have access, then you don't show the card at all. Otherwise, if you don't have access, but you do have the onboarding issue, you would like to change the button to basically point the user to the issue so that they can see the status.
Yeah, I'm seeing so many paths. Like maybe if you've got an issue but you haven't been approved,
Yeah,
like you say, you got that. But maybe if you've been approved but don't have an issue, we could point them to like the new issue using the issue template almost, so they could actually create an onboarding issue themselves. Or I don't like again, maybe I'm going to we should probably start with the smallest possible.
it's simple. You have access, or you have already requested access, so and then you don't see the card anymore.
Yeah, so that's the next part. Like, I mean, yeah, there's so many annoying questions and challenges with this. So if we're going to make an API call, then it's going to take some time, right? So then we've got the question of, do we show this, but then it vanishes once the API is complete?
No,
Do
the other.
we? Okay. Or we could use like a skeleton loader, obviously, to sort of show it in a sort of temporary stuff. But either way, I'm not overly happy with it, if you know what I mean.
You know what the main issue is that that card is not at the bottom of the list.
And we don't want it to be either, because really it should be the primary seat. Do you know what I mean? That's really the kind of where it all starts.
Yes. So option A, don't use any skeleton loading and just wait until the no. I this is, yeah, I would use a skeleton loader to load all the cards and just wait for, and even though you only call the API to check the status of that card. So you don't see any until that API call is finished, and then you load the cards.
So I'm not so okay. If we had multiple that needed to do checks, then I think I'd be more in favor of that. But one of my biggest gripes is, when the shape of the page changes.
Yeah.
And even like obviously with a skeleton loader, at least we know there's like a placeholder, but if it varies in how much like height this consumes, it's not ideal. So let me flip it another way. So there's a bunch of other ways that we could conditionally show or hide this. So sorry,
what did you say? Bunch of?
Yeah, there's a number of other techniques we could potentially use. So one would be now this would be insane, and I definitely wouldn't advocate this, but one would be making the API request server side, so that when this page loads, we've already got the response and result. But obviously, that would slow the page load down significantly. Another would be maintaining a table or a flag against the users in the database once they've kind of completed their onboarding, so that again, I'm throwing out lots of ideas because I don't think any of them are perfect, but I think we might end up needing to combine. I don't like the complexity of it, but I think we might end up wanting to combine them to get that really sleek UX, which I think is desirable.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I was thinking is if we've maintained like a flag against the user or a table with a list of users who have been onboarded, then we can determine server side, and the same way that we know whether you're logged on and whether you've got Discord things, etc. We do that server side, and you're all good instantly, essentially.
One question I
Yeah.
have, Lee, is when do we know that a person has uh, already started the onboarding process and he's completed the onboarding process? How do we define that? Do we have a list of?
That's a good question. I think I would say we haven't really got a clear definition. So again, this is another question that's up for grabs. At the moment, if you were to put me on the spot and ask me, I would say that there's two things or a couple of different ways that I would say it's maybe complete. So I would say that the onboarding issue has the access request approved label.
Okay.
And then either maybe we say that they've checked off all of the items or that the onboarding issue has been closed. And I feel like those criteria would say, okay, you've had an onboarding issue, you've been approved and you've got access, and you've either chosen to close the issue yourself or you've ticked off. Do you know what I mean? What one of those kind of things would be criteria that I would be happy to use. But again, that's why I was saying it's a bit of a weird scenario where it's like if you've got access but haven't gone through the onboarding, then you're a bit of in this no man's land. So
yeah. So probably if you can, probably the person who raised the PR, the first PR, and got it merged, can we suggest that he has completed the onboarding?
I don't think so. I think that this process I really like, and we're really kind of, I don't know, advocating and investing in this process because it gets across a bunch of information. Although I suppose what I could also start to argue is that this process might start to become redundant with this platform, because what this process aims to do is connect you to Discord, get you to the first contribution guide, get you to our event list, etc. So I suppose, like, really digging into it, maybe we could start to consider that. But at the moment, what I almost want, first of all, you don't need to be a member of the community forks to have merged an MR. So you might have just forked the project yourself. So that would if we hid that, then they wouldn't know about like the community forks. And so yeah, I mean, maybe that raises a really good, and I don't want to keep creeping the scope, but that's the nature of the beast, is that maybe what we should really be thinking about is starting to break this down, and like think of it as different flags. Like, have you got access to the community forks? Have you raised a merge request from the community? Like,
I would that card is doing too many things.
Exactly. That's my point, essentially. That's my point. But the reason, I guess, is because the onboarding process existed before the platform, right? So what we probably need to work out is what is happening in the onboarding process that isn't happening on there, and or like so maybe we more need to be thinking about, well, what would a world look like where we didn't need this anymore? But we still need it, I think, for the access and potential conversation. But all of this other information, arguably, we could do in here, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah. We
You
can
do it
put them as tasks. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
issue is that if you only do mention these things on the contributor platform, then you force everyone to go through the contributor platform.
Yeah, which I realize it's sort of a potential like hurdle or whatever you want to call it, but I think that's really the way we're going. We're more and more pushing people to that. Like during the hackathon, like our CTA is the contributor platform. At events that the marketing team and our team are attending, the QR codes and stuff are for the contributor platform. Like we're really going to be pushing that. So and single source of truth again, like I think that's what we're coming up against, right? We've kind of got this and this doing a lot of the same stuff, and we're starting to get duplication.
So, random idea.
Yep.
The start onboarding is not a card, but is a section like contribute to GitLab and everyone can contribute. And instead of being a card, is like onboarding status, onboarding journey, or whatever you want.
Yeah.
We have a list of things that we can check. For example, the same thing that we have here. And you basically do it all in there, because you could, if you're a new contributor and you don't care about checking all the things, you could dismiss the onboarding section altogether. And yeah, you can quickly see your onboarding status in there. And if you don't, if you haven't started the onboarding process yet, we could have, instead of the list, have a button to start the onboarding journey. For example, opening the access request and stuff like
that. Yeah. So we come in with this tick straight away right on here. So that would be sort of the very first. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. What I guess I feel like that will then change the design and look and feel. And I wish this is where I knew how to use and I could do things like Figma. Because I would see it as more potentially being, let me bring this over to here for a second, more like being, can I put them side by side? Rather than at the moment where we've got like A, B, C, D, F as our sort of cards, I would potentially feel more comfortable with it being more linear, if you know what I mean. So 1, 2, 3, 4, like full width. And I think some of them you want to be able to tick off yourself. So can tick off manually some, automatically get ticked off some. And then this is where, go on.
I don't really think you need to have everything in a column. For example, if you go back to the page, the login card, okay, is important and could be the very first card, and we all agree on that. But connect with the community, read the guide, and join an event. They could still be 2-column cards. I think.
So you're sort of saying, okay, so top section, header, login.
Not even like that, like not dividing it, dividing the page into sections.
You are saying it has an overlay, Marco?
Sorry?
You are saying it has an overlay. The login will be an overlay button. Like you will have an overlay sheet and then login in the middle.
I actually, I don't know if I've still got the merge request for that. Let me have a look. That is how I did it at first, but we rejected that because it's too sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, intrusive, and will be people that just want to come and look or to go onto the leaderboard. Let's see if I can find. Knowing because I threw it together, I probably didn't do any screenshots. So this one that was closed. No, typical. There's no screenshots. But yeah, I did that with a modal. And like as soon as you hit the page, I kind of tried to. You could dismiss it, but I think from a UX point of view, I was told it's not a favorable approach.
Too intrusive.
So yeah, so sorry, Marco. Go on. Go. So you're saying
I don't know how the cards are laid out in code actually, but if you structure that section to use a wrap panel, and then you have each section you want to have it full width. Yes, but did you use rows or is it wrapping itself because the card doesn't fit in, so it goes to a new line, stuff like that? Because that way you could, for example, say login. Okay, login, we want it to be full width. All the others are half width and they wrap automatically.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not massively familiar with Bootstrap. Sort of the fact I think it's using Flexbox, I guess, because these are all supposedly columns.
Yes.
But configured, I guess, to be
yes
12 columns default, but if it's medium or above, then 6 columns, so you can fit 2 by 2.
Yes.
Or 1 by 1 or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I guess you could have a mix. I don't know. Like, I just think it'd look quite weird. I guess I can. Yeah, I can actually do that. So if I make read the guide, for example, if I tell that to be always 12. Suppose it's not as bad as I was expecting.
But in this case, I mean, it would depend on. We would need to decide which cards would be full width and what not. Because if you have one card full width and the next 2 cards half width, then you're good because we have one full row and one full row.
Yeah. So okay, let's just skip ahead a little bit. So the reason I think that this works well when you've got maybe 6 cards or so, like this big cards, half width, little icon, etc. Button. But I think if we want something akin to the onboarding issue with 20 CTAs, that's why I'm sort of thinking that I want smaller full width. But maybe we keep this icon, but maybe we just make it a lot more, a bit like the to-do list in GitLab, if you know what I mean. So each row would probably only be like this high. Might have a tick box on the right-hand side, or.
But that would only work for the onboarding journey section.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So, and if you change the login not to be a card and just be a top action at the top of the page, so you have that, and then you can care about all the other cards, for example, connect to the community, read the guide, join an event. Then you have the onboarding journey, and then the everyone contributes section.
So this is login. So why did that not work?
Because you're on the wrong page.
Hey, thanks, Marco.
Something like that, but I would, for example, ditch the card altogether for the login section and have, I don't know, the GitLab logo at the top of, even on top of contribute to GitLab with a login button.
So my only, I don't know if this will work or not, but we'll try it. I think it could work. What I think is this text to me all kind of blurs, like that these panels kind of stand out to me, if that makes sense. So I do feel like it needs something to make it stand out. And you could argue maybe that the primary CTA, like by having a blue button, it makes it pop a little bit.
You know what? Even if you use a card on top of the page like that, and you have it separate from the other cards down on the rest of the page, I like it more to have the primary button there, because otherwise you would have a mix of primary and secondary buttons on the same section.
Yeah.
Which I'm not really a fan of.
This is where my brain probably isn't going to be able to. Look the wrong way around for some reason. It should be. Okay, well, that didn't work. Why that doesn't work. I'm not passing a logo.
Default 20 string.
What that? Oh, hang on a minute. I should be VIF-ing it entirely, shouldn't I?
Oh, yeah, you can.
That was silly. I thought that was part of the default card, but it wasn't. Okay, so yeah, it should just VIF it entirely. Sure. And actually, there's a column. So that's better.
Yeah, and you could even change the layout or change the background color to something different to make it pop
out even more. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have that, which is the main thing that you should do when you get on this page, and then you have the rest.
Yeah. So going back to then again, I'm almost like it's separate conversations, I guess, about like two columns versus one column. Like I guess, yeah, I think I sort of agree with you. There might be some stuff that we have, but I feel like this is a contributor platform, and basically all of these are all going to be about, I suppose we could choose, maybe it's about, is something done or not done? Like connecting to Discord, like you do it and then you're done. Whereas joining an event is something that you would persist, right? Because you would check back every so often. So like that you might keep this one separate, but
I would keep the read the guide and join event cards always available, because having a quick link to the guide is always useful, and having also a quick link to the events list is also always useful. connect with the
But then
community.
who's going to read the first contribution or the contribution guide, like when they're sort of
Because
5-10
the-
miles in?
because that's only the first contribution guide. What if you add more buttons on that card? For example, read the first contribution guide, the front end guide, development guide, the backend development guides, database, and stuff like that. Because those are all quick links that I found useful.
Yeah, so I feel like that's where I'm then worried about like clutter, and maybe we should be set. Go on.
Yeah, I think the login is a little bit redundant. Can we bold the icon on the left here? Probably here. Instead of,
To bold that header, or
yeah, because it feels like already we have here. Probably if we can bold it here, it'll be really helpful. Here.
so at the moment I
Because
probably need to just pull this out of here if I'm honest, because really it shouldn't be reusing the same component. It should be a separate component. But even it doesn't really feel. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, over here. So this is in
here,
the
yeah.
nav. So if I'm honest, I don't think anyone's ever gonna really be drawn to, like, we really want to explain why they should log in as well, I think.
But
I think we do need something front and center to encourage the login.
But I think this header might be redundant then. Probably we can just keep this please log in to help us tailor your experience and login button at the side.
So I guess if you land on something like the leaderboard, maybe, or somebody sends you a link to their profile on here, or say it is nice to always have it as a sort of placeholder, and then obviously once you're logged in, it.
Oh, your audio got cut off.
Yeah.
Back again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah, I think it is nice to have it up there in case you land on a different page.
You could hide it on the homepage if you're not logged in.
This one I'm saying. This one is not needed, I guess, because you can just keep this button on the side here.
Yeah. No, I would agree, and I even think that I only removed the image so it didn't take up so much height, but the image actually gives it a bit of sparkle or whatever. So maybe I'd even go like image on the left here, then some text in the button on the right, or whatever. Yeah. But so okay, we can consider splitting that out. I'll see what the team think, but I still my biggest problem isn't even with that. We keep going. It's such a, I don't know, these technical problems are normally super simple, right? But it's when it comes to UX and design and stuff. Let's almost ignore whether or not we keep a few big ones, half width, etc. But then let's presume that we decide that we want to move like all of this over, and let's. Again, it almost doesn't matter, I don't think, whether they're half width or full width. But the next question in my mind, or the big thing, is around about like, when they're ticked off, what do we do? Do they vanish? Or do they move to the bottom of the list and get grayed out so you can untick that? Like, what's your sort of...
I would keep them in there just as, and show them as marked as done.
Yeah.
Because, for example, on some of those you also have links, so it could still be useful to be able to click them and go to those pages.
And do you think that'd be all right if, like in this instance, I guess it's mimicking this in a like, which is probably makes sense as the first iteration, right? To basically almost mimic the manual, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's okay that you then like have to scroll potentially like that the first top of the screen is all complete and you wouldn't really know unless you scroll down. Suppose we could have the header could sort of say like how many.
Yeah, but you could have, for example, a header with your contributor journey and 9 out of 10 steps completed.
So the other thing, again, this is definitely off topic, but that like I'd like us to show on here would be like your, I don't know what you call it, like your leveling up sort of thing. So I think that'd be really nice at the beginning to sort of see, oh, you're level 2 and you only need an extra 100 points to become like some kind of progress bar almost. But again, I suppose that could get confusing with like onboarding progress versus like leveling up progress.
I think that could be part of the of your contributor journey section. If then you have a subsection of, I don't know, like your contributor journey with current status, and you could show the badge of the user and how many points they have and how many points they are still missing for the next level and stuff like that, and then have the list of tasks. Not
Yeah,
really.
it's tricky because I'm sort of torn because I'm like, well, part of me says that they're linked, another part of me says they're not. So I guess we need to be very I don't know what the word is, conscious of like finding issues to work on
Yeah.
is something that would help them to level up. But these things like wouldn't really.
Yeah, but even finding issue to work on is that's why I wouldn't I would allow the user to dismiss the journey section altogether. Because, for example, if I just requested access to and started the onboarding process to have access to the community forks, but I already know how to find issues and stuff like that, I don't need to tick those tasks as done because I'm never gonna do them.
So yeah, the ability to sort of tick off everything essentially.
Either tick off everything or just hide the journey section if we decide that once you have completed your journey, then we would hide the section anyway. Because once I'm done ticking all the boxes, do I really care about viewing them as done anymore?
Well, that's where it gets confusing because based on what you were saying a minute ago, yes, because you were saying it's quite helpful to have like the link to the guide and the front end. But that again ties into like phase 17, where I'd like to start saying, well, of the 100 merge requests that you've merged, 87 of them are front end. So let's tailor this and let's suggest issues that you could work on that are in the front that have got the front end label. Let's show you a link to the front end style guides and let's do you know what I mean? Like
well, either
again, that's
we could also have the links shown twice. For example, we have them on the to-do tasks. I mean, not really to-do tasks, but you know what I mean? And then have the same links on another section. For example, alongside the contributor guide, we could have the front-end guidelines, back-end guidelines, database guidelines as cards. So not having more buttons on the same card.
Yeah, yeah. I just spotted something while we're looking at there. It says find yourself in the GitLab contributor leaderboard. Still links to the old merge request. What's it? So we don't actually have a link to the new contributor platform, as far as I can tell. I'll check in a minute.
Uh-huh.
We should, I would say, on.
Yeah, I think on is better.
I don't think that's mentioned anywhere else. Guess it was not really a thing. The other thing I'm curious is like this access request. We're not doing this anymore. Should I delete this template at this point?
If we're not using it, yeah. Oh, I only have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah. Just, yeah, I might just need to play around with some stuff. But I'm glad you've definitely echoed some of the things I've heard previously, like not hiding stuff. Seems to be a consensus. My only concern with that is like I do like the login thing. I think we definitely want to hide. The nice thing about that is that it forces a server round trip, if you know what I mean, when you log in. So I think that one's all good.
Yeah, and if you break the onboarding, if you ditch the onboarding card and have the onboarding journey section, then you could have a skeleton loading only on that because it's down on the page. So even if it takes a few milliseconds to load, you wouldn't really notice because the page shift because it's hidden anyway. Unless you have big display.
What do you think? Like, do you think maybe it makes sense if we almost kept like a card and then like that just took you down to the section? Because what we really do want is this to still sort of be like primary. If that what I'm worried about is if we've got, I don't know, 4 cards at the top here that are about sort of, I don't know, joining events and stuff that we're not really like that interested or fussed about, and then we've got the onboarding section like down further. Like I kind of want that to be front and center.
You could keep it as a card with a button that scrolls the page, and then if the user decides to dismiss the section or that section is completed, you could hide the card also, because at that point the user already knows everything about the onboarding, hopefully.
Also one more cue I have, like how do we know for the old users who have completed the onboarding, like we should show something here in the page.
So my view on it would be that we almost start from scratch, start afresh, and sort of show everything to everyone. And then like I think it's fine for them to, especially if there's a sort of mark all as complete or dismiss all option, I think it's fine to show that to them. If we are going to break it down to this like fine level of detail, the good thing is we definitely can like automatically mark some of them off.
Correct.
Whereas before, when I was trying to figure out, well, when should we show and hide this entire CTA, that was a bit much. But if we're
Got
going to
it.
break it down into all these smaller tasks,
Hmm.
then I think it's much easier to sort of, you know, show whether or not they've raised their first MR or had the first MR merge. I think these can all be like milestones on this kind of list.
Got it.
Well, that's how I'm envisaging it anyway. And so, like, there's some that we can programmatically mark as complete, and then it's down to them if they want to sort of tick them themselves. But I like still showing them, but kind of just marking them as complete. Keeping this, and maybe what we do here is we say start onboarding if they haven't marked any of the tasks as complete. But as soon as they've marked one or more as complete, it sort of says like continue onboarding or something like that, or level up or something along those lines.
Got it.
Awesome, that's exciting. I think I'll have to mock something up maybe and see what people think. Wicked. Have you yourself, were you already aware of this kind of leaderboard and site? Have you used it, looked at it yet, or?
No. See, I just contributed first MR. I think since you have given me some of the issues to work on, I didn't see this leaderboard stuff. I'll start working on them and then see this. How is it?
Awesome.
etc.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I think it's almost like we're almost at a tipping point now. Like there's not a lot of functionality on here, but like I think, as I say, we're starting to want to drive people to it. So I definitely think we'll start to take opportunities when you have your first MR merged. At the moment, it says to like nominate yourself to get some swag, but we're going to automate that process. So maybe we can change that message to say like, check this out to sort of find out how to level up and provide feedback, etc. Cool, awesome. Thanks so much for joining, and I really appreciate your views and feedback on it. Marco, enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
And catch you all later in the week. Take care.
Yeah.